if you could go back in time, give your younger version of yourself some advice, maybe some things to do differently, what might that be?
Whoever we are today is what our past got us to, right? In order to go to the next level, you have to kill that old story.
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice. It's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible. Hey everybody, welcome back to the David Guttman podcast. I have a really exciting guest, at least for me. The journey he's been on is one that I'm way more interested than the average person. So Jesse Deutscher, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So I want to start maybe, because again, when I watched one of the couple of podcasts that you were on and so know a little bit about your story, plus we talked, a few weeks ago when we first met. And I'm like, man, this guy's story is so interesting. And I'll tell you why it's particularly interesting to me in a minute. But maybe let's start back and, where'd you grow up and, siblings, what'd your folks do? Let's start there.
Okay. So I grew up in Long Island, just like you.
Yep.
Italian and Jewish family.
Me.
Yeah, just like you. I got a sister, parents that are divorced since I was 3. So my dad struggled with alcoholism, got sober right before he left. And never really made a lot of money, just got by. My mom was very nice to him, didn't make him pay child support until he got his inheritance, and then she got it. But let him kind of do his thing. He never made much money, lived in small apartments, never really made it, right? My mom, on the other hand, worked for Barclays Investment Bank. She was a director. She put in projects for the big banks all over the world and made a really good living. So, I come from a middle class to upper middle, more upper middle, but single mom that provided for us. So she made good money, but spent it all.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I remember from one of the podcasts, you started getting high when you were like 11?
Yeah, I started smoking marijuana at like 11, 12.
But was your sister older or younger?
A little bit older.
A little older. So how did that go? Like, how did you, just some friend, ran around with the wrong crowd, or like, how did you start, smoking at 11? That's pretty young.
Well, yeah, I was running with the bad kids, right?
Yeah.
I got in a lot of trouble in school. My sister, that's one of the hardest topics for me to talk about because she struggled with suicidal stuff and she was in hospitals, mental hospitals. My parents spent all their time worried about her, so I had the freedom to go do whatever I wanted, right? So I was out doing my own thing since I was young because they were worried about her, not me. So, I got involved with some of the wrong crowd. I don't know if you know Oceanside, New York, but there's Nathan's where they do all the car meets, right? So we hung out at that arcade, and that's kind of where it all started. Everyone was smoking on the side of the building, this, that. So there was all, from 11-year-olds to 18-year-olds all hanging out together.
Got it.
So that's kind of where it began. And then started selling weed because I didn't really have the money to buy the weed. So I started selling little bits, going to Jamaica Ave on the train, picking it up, and coming back. And that's how my entrepreneurship journey started.
At what age were you jumping on the train?
12 years old. I was buying a junior ticket.
Right.
And the conductor came up to me like my second time on the train, and she goes, "Where's your parents?" And I said, because I had the junior ticket. And I said, "Oh, they're not here." She goes, "Oh, if you're traveling on the train alone, you have to pay for a regular ticket." I said, "Oh, okay, no problem. How much more do I owe you?"
Right.
So that's what I did, But in New York back, early 2000s, it was more like normal, right? Like kids took subways, kids took trains. So it wasn't like they didn't know I was going to get drugs. They just thought maybe I was going to visit a family member. My parents put me on the train. It wasn't really the world we live in today.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I always said, even though I went to college and business school, that if I were born, closer to your age, I don't think I would have ever gone to school, I'd have been starting businesses in middle school. I don't know if it would have been a weed distribution business, but I could relate. So like, where did the entrepreneurial bug come from? Is it just more of a need-based thing? Like, hey, I got to do something, or?
I think it's a personality thing.
Yeah.
I don't like authority. So
Okay.
I've had a couple jobs and, I found ways within those jobs to do whatever I wanted. And when that didn't work anymore, the job ended. I fired myself. I don't think I've ever actually been fired from a job. It was more like, if you don't come in on this Memorial Day weekend, then you're not going to have a job anymore. I said, okay, let me pack my stuff up now because I'm not coming. Right? Like I always fired myself as soon as I didn't have that ability to make my own way. But I think it's just my personality. I've always had the gift of gab. My whole family said, like, they're like, oh, you're gonna be successful. You're gonna be successful. And then kind of just, I like money. I was money driven for a while, for a long time.
Well, so you're a smart guy. There's no doubt about it. I can just tell by talking to you. Were you a good student? Did you play sports? Terrible student?
Terrible student. Played every sport there was.
Okay.
At the age of 12, I snapped my arm pitching a baseball. I was throwing the ball. I had a cyst in my bone. It snapped. The ball went towards third base, and my life changed forever that day. So it took a year to heal. When it healed, I needed surgery because it didn't heal correct. So they had to take bone marrow out of my hip and inject it and fill the cyst. And I was out of sports for 2 years.
Got it.
That's when I started getting fat because I went from playing hockey, lacrosse, baseball. I was on a junior Olympic diving team out of Hofstra. We practiced out of Hofstra and Eisenhower Park Pool. Like I was the athlete, right? All-star games, this, that. And then I gained 40 pounds in the 2 years that I stopped doing that because I was just sitting around.
So that had to be hard. I mean, again, I was a pretty competitive athlete my whole life too. And if I was out of it for 2 years, I think I'd have been depressed as hell. Like, what was that like for you? Especially putting on 40 pounds
too. I started smoking pot.
Yeah.
That's when it's right. So as soon as I was removed from the athletes, who else do I hang out with?
Got it.
The troublemakers, right?
Yeah.
And I was already a troublemaker. Even though I was an athlete, I got kicked out of every class. I had more detentions than anybody in my class. I was not allowed to go on the senior school trip. Like, you name it, it was like I had it.
That's funny.
But I made it through high school.
So like you said, you're super money motivated. Did you go to college?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents paid for 2 semesters. I failed twice. Told me they're not going to pay anymore. So I said, okay, I'll pay. That's not going to stop me from going. Well, I went one more time past one math class that I didn't have to go to. Right. So I went to the first day. They gave us a test. She said, you got a 99 out of 100. You come back for the final. So I came back for the final. So I didn't even have to go to that class. That's the only class I ever passed. So when I paid for it myself and didn't even go to class, I just stopped. So
then when did the switch flip in your head? Like, well, I don't need to go to college to be successful. Like, I'm assuming at some point, it's maybe after that class, after that semester you paid for. When did that switch get flipped for you?
I bought into a tree service with one of my good friends, and Hurricane Sandy hit, and we were making a ton of money, and I saw the opportunity, that was my first real business by myself with somebody, and I saw the amount of money we were making. I was like, I'm never going back to work.
And how old were you when that happened?
Early 20s.
Early 20s. All right, so, and you ride that for a while, you sell that business, what happens with that business?
Well, you know how partnerships go.
Some work out good, some not so good.
People get greedy. I was sick for a week, and the tree climber was like, this is a good job I got, right? I came back Friday. I wasn't supposed to be there till Monday. So he starts telling me, this is a good job, right? I was like, yeah, 5,200 was all right. He goes, 5,200 was 7,200. Well, my partner told me that it was 5,200. So he tried to pocket $2,000 off the top of the job before expenses, before splitting what we made. And that was that. And I told him, if I have to sue you, I will, or you could pay me out over 4 years, pay me all my money back, and we'll call it a day. Because the trust was broken, right? He's like, you could handle the finances. I said, the trust is gone.
Yeah.
This is done.
That's disappointing.
It's life.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's funny though. Well, so I'm curious, Has that affected your ability to do partnerships with other folks? Like kind of like, oh, I had a girlfriend that cheated on me, therefore every girlfriend's going to cheat on me, or were you able to compartmentalize that at all?
I learned the lesson,
Right.
not to really do business with friends,
Right.
like good friends, right? That was the first thing. And then for a while, no, I went into another partnership pretty soon after, which ended up being worse than that one.
Oh.
I ended up in business with an Italian guy from Philadelphia, and
Right.
I didn't know when I became a partner, and they were stealing the whole time. That was a pawn shop in Florida.
Okay.
Again, no, I trust people, right? So I had a therapist tell me one time, he goes, told me I had trust issues, and he goes, if you don't trust anybody, you're going to have nobody.
Right.
But if you trust people and give them the chance to hurt you,
Right.
then at least you'll find your right people.
Right.
So
That's great advice, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people make the mistake. I've had people very close to me, inexplicably, screw me over on things that even in hindsight, I can't really make heads or tails out of. But at the end of the day, my experience is one, that the why doesn't really matter that much. You either put someone into the category, I can trust this person or I can't. And you can decide, even if it's a family relationship, you know what? If I give this person money, it's not a loan, it's a gift, right? And you have other family members that maybe it is a loan, right? But you just have to know for yourself in advance which of those two it is. And I think people try to convince themselves it's one when it's the other. And you just got to know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, you have to assume the worst so you don't get disappointed when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you still gotta trust,
I totally agree.
Otherwise you'll just be miserable and alone.
Not only that, I also feel like as you get older and you have a little bit more experience, you get better at pattern matching. You'll have that, you meet that person and you'll be like, I don't really feel comfortable with that person. I can't quite put my finger on why, but that's definitely not someone I would go into business with.
The gut instinct.
Yeah. And sometimes, and again, I think it's just your brain's doing pattern matching that maybe the conscious part of your brain can't figure out, but the subconscious part does.
Yeah.
So I think there's some of that. So, all right. So eventually you get out of some of those bad partnerships. Have you had some partnerships that have worked out well?
With my wife.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that whole time that I was having partners and doing this and doing that, I was selling weed the whole time. Right. So for 20 years, I made $500,000 a year selling weed.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, these were all the things that I needed to do to save face in the community, that this is what I do.
Got it.
But really my money wasn't. I never really became successful in a business.
So you were basically your own front.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for years. And then 2 years ago, I completely cut it out 100%. And that was a struggle. But I was doing real estate for 6 years by now almost 7 years. So while I was doing that and owning all these other little businesses that nothing was really successful, I was still successful, right? I was still living a great life, you know. But the real estate business, then I started building a team. So that was like my first real thing that started bringing in six figures, multiple six figures at a certain point, that I grew alone, but with my wife doing like the back end stuff.
So you're like the Corleone family that actually eventually became legit.
Right.
My Corleone promised it, but never got there. You actually got there.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have done it without mentorship. I joined Eric Spofford's inner circle, and he's sober and built everything he had after sobriety and came from nothing. And that story resonated with me. So one day I went up to him and I'm like, how come I feel like I got to stop smoking weed every time I'm in these rooms? And he laughs in my face and he turns to a couple of the other speakers that were there and he goes, "You hear what Jesse just said?" He goes, "'Cause you fucking should." And I'm like, all right. I literally went home, smoked one more time, didn't get high. That was God telling me this isn't for me anymore. But then as soon as I stopped smoking, I didn't connect with any of the people I was selling weed with anymore. And I just made the decision to stop both at the same exact time.
Wow.
Literally overnight.
And that was 2 years ago.
That was, 2 years ago. April 9th was my last day smoking pot.
Wow.
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it just that conversation with Eric? Was that really...
I mean, listen, I
think are an accumulation, right?
I went to rehab in high school. I was addicted to opiates at 17 to 19-ish. Like right before I turned 20, I got clean off of the hard drugs. Right. And I did some cocaine. I partied. I drank till about 25. And that's where I started going through a lot of therapy and really working out the demons and got rid of all the hard stuff. But the weed went 2 years ago. That was like the final straw. That was like, I'm going to smoke weed forever. That's who I am. I'm the weed guy, right?
Yeah,
so like
yeah.
you go to a party, everyone's coming to me because they want to smoke the good weed.
Right.
And it's like my identity. But then I said, you know, I already started creating my new identity. So it was like, I'm not my old story. I'm not the old me. I am whoever I changed to become, right? So I was just ready to make that final change. And
when did you meet your wife?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So if I remember correctly, it was right around 8 years ago, you were 360 pounds?
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, I met her when I was pretty heavy. Yeah, I was 350,
Right.
got to 305.
Okay.
Met her, moved back to New Jersey. I was living in Florida. And then when I went back to Jersey, I went from 305 back to 360. And then that's when I started my constant weight loss from there.
So how was that for, you know, because it's very different to date a guy who's 360 versus a guy who's 230, 220, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how was that for her? How was that for you? Like,
I asked her what she was thinking all the time. I was like,
I don't want to say it, but yes,
I tell her all the time. I'm like, you didn't. I said you couldn't have liked the way I look, so I must have done something right. You know what I mean? Like I got her.
Right.
But no, she saw the potential in me, and she was a big part of my change. And you know, I had a negative mindset. She didn't have a negative mindset. So yeah, she brought a lot of value to my life and helped me change my life big time.
How did you guys meet?
We met playing pool. So I'm a pool player, and I knew her prior.
Like a really good pool player.
Yeah.
Like tournament winning pool player.
Yeah. We won some national things as a team.
As a team?
Yeah. Team events. I took seventh in a junior tournament, a big tournament in Philadelphia when I was 17 years old. I've traveled the world. I've bet big money. I know basically every pro in the pool world. But now we also own an APA pool league, which is like a bar league in New Jersey. We own a county in New Jersey, just kind of for fun. It doesn't really make much money.
Right.
And it's not really fun. So we're trying to sell it now, but you know how it goes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we met like that. She was dating some guy for like 3 years. So I didn't even look at her like that. Like I knew she was hot, right? But like that was his girl. So I'm not going to do that.
And you're 360 pounds.
I still got girls. The reason I got to 360 was because I still got almost any girl I wanted. Because I had the gift of gab, right? So like, could I keep them? No, because they didn't want their dad or their kids to be a fat fuck. But I was able to get them for a night, you know, maybe two.
Okay.
Maybe I was their side piece, right? They're not going to show me, but they're going to come over on Saturday. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's kind of what kept me from doing something about it for so long. Because I was still making money. I was still getting girls. I was still, you know, doing whatever I wanted.
Right.
But I was having health issues, chest pains, couldn't tie my own shoes. Like I was a mess.
Yeah, I remember you saying in one of the podcasts I was listening to about how you like renting the cart because you couldn't really walk. You know, the pain in your back, all, you know, your feet, all that. I mean, I can only imagine. Like you're carrying a 125-pound person on your back all day.
More than that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so tell me about the journey with your wife then, in terms of you got more of a negative mindset. She's got a positive mindset. Because again, I only met you a few weeks ago. Right. You seem like you're constantly smiling. Like you're a very positive, upbeat guy. I would have never said, oh, Jesse's a negative guy. How did that change happen? How did she influence you?
So I started therapy. I was like depressed, borderline suicidal, but I would still smile when you met me. You would have no idea. But when I was at home, I was staying home for days at a time. I was, you know, deep depression. Started therapy. Started paying $169 3 times a week for years. So when she met me, I was already going through, you know, not by chance. This was God, right? So I started praying. I started working with a therapist who's very spiritual, and I started to pray for what I wanted. And you know, putting it out there. And that was the beginning. And then she came in at the time I already had started doing a lot of that deep work. And I knew what I wanted, and I knew why I couldn't find what I wanted. And like I said before, a woman looks at you and goes, that's going to be the father of my kids. If she doesn't see that future, you're not going to be able to keep them. Right.
Right.
So he made me aware of that. And then he also taught me more about women, like what they want. They want safety. Like they want to feel safe with you.
Sure.
You know, they're emotional, we're logical. You know, I started to learn what to say and how to communicate what I really wanted with them. But my wife didn't push anything on me. She kind of was just like, she started putting on a little bit of weight, just going for pizza, going out to eat, you know, doing all this. And she was like, download this app where you take a picture of your food and it tracks the food. I did that and I ate like 6,800 calories. And I was like, that was like a normal day. And
That's like Michael Phelps level calories.
I was like, what the, like what? I'm like, isn't normal like 2,000?
Right.
So then I downloaded my Fitness Pal. I did my calories and I got to eat 3,600 calories at the beginning because I was so big and still lose weight. And then I kind of just cut the calories as I went. And like, depending on, I didn't do macros or anything. I literally just counted calories and cut them as I plateaued. That's literally how I did everything. Now I do macros, but I didn't at the beginning. Okay. So she didn't push anything. She didn't teach me. She just kind of was just like, check this out. And then it was my switch that went off. Like, it's time to do something.
Wow. You know, it's funny because I think people like to think that, you know, men and women are the same, which we're definitely not. But it's funny because I would say the single worst piece of advice I ever got about relationships was because I'm married my second time now, second and last time. I promise you that. But the first time, you know, I only had one because I was 26 at the time. I only had one friend that was married. And he said, you know, Dave, you don't marry who they are, you marry their potential, which is maybe the worst advice for a guy, but I actually think for a woman, it's good advice. I think it's different.
Yeah, for 100%.
Yeah,
because that's literally what my wife saw my potential. She continues to see it. She continues to support me. Right. The most important thing for us is we just want support.
Yeah,
that's it.
I just want my wife to be a force multiplier for me.
Right, but whether we win or we lose, we want her to say, "Good job." Like you tried your hardest, basically.
Yeah.
Like just support. You come home, you're not getting shit at home.
Right.
We get enough shit during the day. I don't need shit at home, right?
100%. My wife busts my balls exactly zero.
Right.
0.
100%.
I mean, in over 9 years, and I had not busted my balls one time.
Keep her.
100%. Yeah,
right.
That's why I married her.
Right. And then you see these guys who are going for these superficial girls. They're all about the money, and they're giving them a hard time. Right. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
You had my buddy Andy on here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I tell him all the time, like, the girls he was dating at first, I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Crazy.
Like, how you know that's going to turn out.
Oh, like, you know right away.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but yeah, support is the biggest one. And yeah.
Well, so you have a 4.5-year-old daughter now, and you and I were talking that other night, and I was saying that 5 is my favorite age. So maybe talk a little bit about, you know, being a dad to a girl in particular, and maybe how that's changed your lens, if it has, which I would think it probably has.
Yeah. So another thing I learned in therapy, right? We don't become men until we have children, right? So if you look at a 50-year-old man, I say that in quotes, where are they? If they don't have kids, they're at the bar drinking, they're partying, they're miserable. Yeah. They literally have no purpose, right? So I feel like the shift from boy to man, no matter what age it's at, is when you have a child.
Yeah.
You know, that is where you think about somebody else. You live, some people still stay selfish to a point, but you're living selflessly, right? Like your thought isn't, how does this affect me? It goes to, how does it affect my child?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the biggest shift and that purpose, and that it's not all about you anymore. No matter, even if you have a girlfriend, like it's just not the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you know what I'm talking about.
Well, you know, I remember, honestly, like till I had my daughter, I never really even thought about whether I was or wasn't happy. It never even occurred to me, like, honestly, really. And I wasn't really unhappy, but now I'm looking at this kid, this little kid's looking up at me, expecting like me to teach them how to be happy. I'm like, well, shit, I'm not gonna be able to teach her if I don't figure it out myself. It shifted my thinking completely.
Okay. Yeah. And that's selfless, right? Now you have to face problems within yourself that you would have never faced if you didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
for something else.
I think the thing that people get, I think the two hardest things about being a parent, because you know, reality is, and I think you'd said your dad was adopted, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to have a kid, there's a lot of kids you could adopt, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, people don't want to. Like one could argue that among the most selfish things one can do is having a child, right? Meaning like, oh, my daughter, the beauty queen, my son, the quarterback, starting quarterback of the football team, whatever, my son, the doctor, my daughter, the lawyer, whatever. It's a selfish act generally. And so I think being able to have a kid and not make it about yourself, make it about them is hard. And I think the other part, and this is the one I really want to ask you about, is how much suffering do you let them endure? Because if you, as a parent, especially to a daughter, dad to a daughter, you don't want them to experience any suffering.
Right.
But that's definitely not the right path.
Right. So mine's 4.5.
Right.
You've done this.
Yeah.
For me, I think our job as parents is we have to basically create a life for our kids where they have to suffer, heal from as little as possible. Not suffer from as little as possible, but heal from as little as possible.
Oh, I like that.
So my goal as a father is they're always going to have to heal from something, right?
Sure.
If you're successful and you got to work a lot, maybe they feel like they haven't had as much time as they want with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to spend enough time, quality time, present time with her when I'm with her, right? I don't care if it's an hour a day, 4 hours a day, as long as I'm present with her and she doesn't feel that way. Like that's just one thing. But yeah, like trauma, everyone has their own traumas, right? For me, I could get stabbed and you could stub your toe,
right?
And maybe that toe hurts you more than me getting stabbed, like depending on who we are as people, right? Like people handle pain differently.
Yeah.
So, some people have way more trauma than me. Some have less,
right?
But the healing process is different for everyone. So I think that's my biggest goal as a father,
is keep her from not having to heal from things, certainly things you've caused, right?
Right. Yeah. Things I've caused or things that other people cause, right? I'm not with her 24/7. There's things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know that, other friends of mine that have daughters like, oh yeah, when the boyfriend comes over for the date, I'll be, shining the, be polishing the shotgun and da-da-da. I never worried about that. I always figured it was a way bigger problem if no one wanted to sleep with my daughter than if everyone wanted to sleep with my daughter. Yeah, and then if I taught her how to think about guys and how guys think and gave her the tools, then, then it's her job to deploy them.
Well, I think you probably did a good job at showing her how a man should treat a woman, right? Like, I think that's our job.
Sure.
It's not what we tell them, it's what we show them, right? So it's how do I treat her mother?
Yeah.
Do we go out on dates every week? Yes.
Right.
Who do I kiss when I walk in the door first? It's not my daughter, it's my wife first and then my daughter. So she sees the love, right? So showing them what it looks like to be loved by a man is what they're going to pick up and what they're going to look for.
It's funny you say that. It's the reason I got divorced when my daughter was 1 was I didn't want her growing up with, seeing two parents that for me, my decision to get divorced was my wife didn't like me very much. I'm like, I'm not going to stay married to someone. I'm a pretty good guy. I'm like, whatever, for a myriad of reasons that I don't entirely understand. She just didn't particularly like me very much. And I didn't come to realize it till, shame on me, till my daughter was born. But once I realized it, I'm like, I don't want my daughter growing up seeing that. And it might sound weird, but my decision to get divorced because I think you said your parents were 3, you were 3 when your parents split. When I did the research, because I actually researched it, they say, generally, when they're young, 2 or younger was what they said, but 3 is probably not too far from that. Either do it when they're, under that age or wait until they're over 18. But in between, it's much harder. And so for me, that was kind of my line in the sand and I think that was the right decision because ultimately, to your point, my daughter expects the men in her life to treat her how I treat her. Right. And that's a high bar.
Yeah. And it's a good study because I don't remember when my dad really lived there. I remember getting spanked here and there once in a while when I was bad, but I don't remember like the way my sister remembers, right? Because she's 2.5 years older than me.
Right.
But yeah, I say it to my wife all the time. Like when we decided to have a child, I'm like, till the kid's 18, you're not going nowhere, right? Like because now here's the selfless part. It's like, listen, unless we were screaming at each other, fist fight, like if something, like if she's hitting me or something, like I'm out, right? But I didn't pick a woman like that. First off, second off, till she's 18, that's the commitment we made each other already a long time ago because I live life one day at a time. Right. everybody I know is divorced or not married or multiple girlfriends. Like, so I can't tell you where I'm going to be in 20 years. I can tell you where I'm at today.
Right.
And I can tell you what non-negotiable commitment I made with my wife.
Right.
For 18 years.
Right.
Right. This is 100% what we're doing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons your journey is so interesting to me is I have one brother, he's 3.5 years older. And, part of the reason I was a good athlete was because he was a really good athlete and he wouldn't play with me unless I was good enough to not suck when I'm throwing a ball with him or whatever. And, he wrestled, played soccer, all that kind of stuff. He's probably, so he's my height, 5'7", 5'8", and 340 pounds, something like that.
Right now?
Yeah.
So he let himself go.
Yeah. And it's interesting. He's gotten all the way back down to 175 and back up to 330, 340, whatever, more than once. And, it's the kind of thing where it's heartbreaking for me because he clearly is capable of losing the weight, and I was just curious, and I figured I'd do it on the podcast, but like, are there some pearls of wisdom? And because part of me thinks that maybe the best thing that could happen to him is that like have a heart attack and, obviously not die, but have a near-death experience because it's, he's got 3 kids of his own. He knows he's not. I mean, you said something that really, he's divorced, but, has a fiance now that he's been with for a number of years and they have a pretty good relationship. But, and they're both too old to have kids now, so they won't have any more kids. But I like what you had said on one of the podcasts where, you're the excuse your kid's going to use, so if you're a drinker, then you're the excuse for them to be an alcoholic, or if you're morbidly obese, you're the excuse for them to be morbidly obese. And he's aware of all that. And he's critical at the age that they are, that if he ain't around, it's going to go off the rails. But no matter how many times you've had that conversation, he just hasn't been able to get there. Is there any advice you'd give to somebody like that maybe isn't occurring to me?
I mean, he's not happy.
Yeah, how can you be, right? Yeah.
The times that he probably lost all that weight, he was probably happier.
He really was.
Right. So it's just like a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. He's eating to cope with something instead of dealing with the problem. So the best advice I could probably give him is to identify the problem and solve the problem, right? Like make the change that you need to make and then follow through. It's a mindset shift, right? Like I was happy with my woman. I was happy with my child, right? Like all this stuff, I was miserable before and now I'm happy. So my journey is easier now than it would have been at the very beginning. At the beginning, it was just like, I'm disgusting. I have to lose weight.
Right. Because for me, I thought, because I know they say at the Biggest Loser, the people that have lost all the weight, they have a much smaller percentage of, still a bunch gain it back, but a higher percentage than normal don't gain it back. And the reason is because their identity is now associated with having won the Biggest Loser, right? And I thought because when he got down to that, 175, and he was getting accolades from everyone's just like, dude, I didn't even recognize you, like amazing. You're so inspiring that, you'd get so much that would fill your cup up so much that it'd be easier to stick to it. And it's funny. I'm glad I asked you this question because what clicked in my head is he probably needs to do some therapy because he clearly has not figured out what his trigger is.
Yeah, he hasn't went back into childhood and really dug deep, right? Like whoever we are today is what our past got us to, right? In order to go to the next level, you have to kill that old story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so some people put it in the closet, right? They put all the stuff that's in their head and they put it away, they lock the door and they keep moving forward, but eventually it's going to come back.
Right.
Into your mind, right? So like really digging deep into the darkness and trying to figure out, like it could be something as simple as when my dad left, right?
Right.
Recently, I realized how much that affected me when I thought it was all the trauma I went through after that, right? But I didn't go deeper into it.
Yeah.
So, he probably needs to really figure out what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He might not even know. He might
I don't think he does.
Hasn't thought about it in, how old is he?
He's 62. Yeah.
He might have tucked it away for 57 years. It could be from when he's 5.
Well, and I'll say this, my brother is one of the most proficient people I've ever met at compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of hard to get to that weight if you can't compartmentalize, right? Otherwise, let me ask you a little bit about some of the depression, because I from one of the things you said, I mean, you literally got to the point of like gun in mouth, maybe I need to end it. Maybe what got you to that point, and what got you to decide, no, I'm not going to do that?
Well, I mean, God for one, right? Like, it wasn't me who pulled the gun out of my mouth. It was
Had you been religious at all up to that point?
no, but I had just started praying with the therapist for like 2 years straight. Like,
Okay.
it wasn't like pushing God. He was
Sure.
just like, start saying things out loud, structure, like talk to me about what I wanted, tell me what to say. But really what it came down to was I had lost everything again, right? I had to leave this partnership with the pawn shop
Right.
after losing all my money again, which I said I wasn't going to let happen again.
Right.
Right now, that was like the third time it happened.
But you did still have all that income coming in from your selling the weed, no?
No, because I tried to so when I bought the pawn shop, I
Right.
moved from New Jersey, where I
Right.
sold all my weed, to Florida. That was my first attempt at
Got
getting
it.
out of the game.
I see.
Right. And now when I was around this guy and he was on some Fed lists and stuff, he was like, you shouldn't sell weed around me because you're going to end up in prison. And I'm like, okay, say no more. Right. Like, they're watching me always. So you're going to end up getting jammed up. So I got out of it and tried to go legit again, again.
Right.
Prior to that, I was robbed for everything. A couple gang members came into my apartment when I wasn't home and robbed all my weed, all my cash, my whole safe, every piece of jewelry. Literally cleaned out my whole entire place. So that's where the trauma kind of started. That's where the depression started.
Sure.
They put me on medication, Lexapro, Trazodone, Xanax. Like, they had me all drugged up. So for like 5 years, I was on depression medicine. I had PTSD. I had all these labels they put on me, right? But I was fat. I was unhappy, right? Like, I knew that. So when I moved there and I literally felt like I lost everything, I had three options. I kill him, which was number one thought in my head.
I bet.
At the time, right? Because I'm miserable, so fuck him, right?
Right.
And then it was like, okay, I got to watch my back forever. They're going to keep coming, right? If I kill him,
Right.
his guys are just going to keep coming.
Yeah.
That wasn't probably the best option, right? Option two was kill myself. I don't have to deal with anything anymore. Third one was walk away and start over,
Right.
which is what I ended up doing.
Right.
But the psychosis that I was kind of in, my father didn't believe me. So I was in front of my father, and he actually brought it up the other day, which was crazy. And we're sitting there in the pawn shop. I'm looking at him, literally like bawling my eyes out, screaming, not knowing even how to deal with the emotion. But he believed that this guy and not me. Like, I'm like, they're stealing from us. They're stealing. And my dad's like, I don't think he is, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you don't trust your own son? I'm telling you, I'm the one working here for 3 years. I know what the fuck is going on here.
Right.
I'm not stupid. So the fact that he didn't believe me, and he was like taking the word of our partner over me, was where I was like, what got me, I think, to that point. And then literally I was like, if you don't even believe me, I might as well take my life. And then I just remembered a gun in my mouth, shaking. And then literally I remember driving away. I kind of like blacked out, but all I know is I didn't kill myself. I'm here.
Right.
And my dad didn't even like tell me not to do it. He just literally stood there. Like, I don't remember. Actually, maybe he did say something. I don't really remember. I just know he just didn't know what to say or do, I think.
And you said he brought it up the other day?
Yeah, we were on a call, and he brought up something about like remembering where I was then and where I am now.
So you were in business with your dad?
Yeah, so I needed a little bit more money to buy into the pawn shop. So he came in as a small partner, but it was me and the guy's son that were operating the business every day.
How was it working with your dad? Because I'm imagining you got a little bit of a mixed past with him, right?
No, because my dad was completely removed. He just did it to help me be able to buy it. Because I had just lost, I got robbed.
Right.
Then I saved up another 100 and something thousand, you know, and then came here and just put that into the business and needed 200, so he jumped in. Got it. What I mean? And then they got him for more stuff. This other guy like got him in on a diamond deal and just robbed him for another 100,000. My dad's not us.
Yeah.
My dad's not an entrepreneur. He's a very calm, simple man, shops at Walmart, sits at home, watches his shows, swims in the pool. Like, he's happy with nothing.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, this didn't come from who I am, did not come from him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's always been that way. And he grew up rich.
Really?
So yeah, he grew up in Great Neck.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? His parents had all the money, you know, but it was like, he doesn't even like most of his family. Like, it's crazy.
Huh.
Like, cause he's like, I don't know. He's just very simple.
Well, so talk a little bit about mentorship. So sounds like you signed up with Eric, and is he the only person you've had that's sort of been an active mentor for you, or you other people that have sort of given mentorship to you over the years?
There's a guy named Raul that runs the Edge program.
Okay.
Andy's part of that. Yarick's part of that. I met a couple good guys, and they brought me over there, and I just did their boot camp, which is like $25,000, but it's you should send your brother there.
Okay.
Like, no joke.
Yeah.
Be like, bro, I paid for this event for you. It's 3.5 days you're going. I guarantee he'll come back a different man.
Huh.
Because he'll have to face the darkness.
Okay.
Whatever's creating that. So I've been working with them. I went to an event with Wes Watson and Eric in Miami. What other? I've done a couple. I go to a lot of events. I went to like a couple real estate events. I have other people that I've met through networking that I talk to every day, just unpaid mentors.
Sure.
That I bring value to them. They bring value to me. But yeah, Eric was the main one.
Okay. And what about the flip of that? Are there people that you actively mentor?
I coach a couple people for weight loss, right? So I try to target 100-pound men.
Right.
Not 100-pound men. People that need to lose 100 pounds or more is my target audience, because I don't have a six-pack. I'm not going to coach you on how to get a six-pack.
Right.
You're not going to buy that.
Right.
I don't have one.
Right.
But if you're fat and don't know where to start,
right.
I know exactly what you're feeling, and I know how to help you.
Okay.
So that's kind of my niche.
That's got to be rewarding.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the entrepreneurial part of your journey. So 2 years ago, Corleone family gets clean, totally legitimate, and so talk about that journey. I think you had you have an Amazon business, a real estate business, and I think some other ones too. So maybe talk a little bit about that journey and kind of how you and your wife maybe divvy things up.
Okay, so I've had my real estate business for almost 7 years. When I started real estate, I was still selling weed, and I had a CBD store and smoke shop like right before COVID hit,
right?
Which I closed down during COVID. But the real shift 2 years ago was it was a tough one. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not financially, I'm not making what I was making then, right? Because I got to pay a lot of taxes. I got to there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. But what I do know is what's in my head now, and the knowledge and the Rolodex that I have now, I can't fail.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not linear. It doesn't just go like this.
No.
It goes like this, like this, like this, and then this. And 100%. I feel like I'm coming up to this now. Nice. But yeah, so cut myself out of $500,000 a year, struggled to make about 200,000 a year. Last year was probably my worst year since I was 17 years old, where I don't even know. I mean, I had money, so I was able to, I had crypto, I have this, I have that. Bills got paid. Yeah. But definitely I saw a decrease. It wasn't an increase. Last year was my worst year. And then at the beginning of this year, a guy named Mark Evans, I don't know if you know him. He runs the DM family. You should know him. Okay. Solid guy. He owns like 50 or 60 companies or maybe more. Wow. Also has a big coaching program. Met him through Eric, and he posted on Facebook, did an owner finance deal. We bought the company for $375,000, put down 175, and he owner financed 200,000, 3 years interest free. So I just bought the company. Oh. So it was doing 1.2 to 1.6 million a year in revenue. A lot of ad spend, but it's an e-commerce business, so it's kind of in line with what I was doing with Amazon. What I'm doing with a peptide company that is a startup. Mm-hmm. So I'm really kind of. I've owned like 5 or 6 companies, failed every time, which is fine. That's part of the journey.
That's how you learn.
And now I feel like I've kind of narrowed it down to health stuff, real estate. Really, it's e-commerce and real estate.
Got it.
If it's not in the realm of e-commerce or real estate, it's not really for me.
Okay.
Now, I try to gear it towards like fitness. So the peptides is aligned with who I am today,
Sure.
right? The fitness, the longevity, the thinking better, clearer, right? So if it's not aligned to my purpose, it's just noise,
Got it.
you know? But now that I've identified what it is I like to do, I think I'm there now.
So what part of the businesses are you responsible for? What part is your wife responsible for?
So I'm a visionary.
Right.
I'm a networker, right? Like they've named me.
No doubt about that.
They've named me the connector.
Right.
So multiple people, they're like, "Oh, you're like a connector." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been named that already." So my goal is in our real estate business. I recruit new agents, right? Sales. I could teach them sales, and I'm more of like the visionary of where it's going. My wife does everything else.
How is it working with your romantic partner?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's not she's alpha in the sense of if she's dealing with our team members or if she has to be. But when it comes to at home, like she knows I'm the king and she's my queen. Like she knows she's not trying to overstep.
Right.
And she also knows that I have the final say. So she respects me and it works.
It's funny. Almost all of the couples that I know, and I don't know that many, sadly, that where the relationships work well fall into one of two categories. They're either like yours or they're like mine. They're either they work together in the same business, or the woman doesn't work at all, and it's more traditional gender roles, and she's just a force multiplier. But where they both have their own separate careers, those don't tend to work as well in at least my observational experience.
Oh, it's terrible. You let your wife, I mean, not let your wife, I don't want to sound like a fucking controlling prick, but your wife has a job, right? She's out every day with a bunch of other people. All of a sudden, you're not showing her the attention she needs. This guy does, and now she cheats. I mean, or vice versa. Like, it doesn't work when we are who we are. It works for 98% of the world that works a 9 to 5, and that's why the divorce rate is so high, right? That's what I think. But at the same time, my goal for my wife is to not have to work. It's just as we're starting these companies, as I need her before I can replace her and have the right people to replace her and enough money in the company to pay their payroll, she's there doing whatever it is to support me.
You know, it's funny because, I back a few years ago, I was at a crypto company back in Chicago, and my wife was working and, started making really good money doing fitness training and meal prep for like super high net worth executives and, making 6 figures, but working all the time. And I'm like, you're miserable. You're working all the time. It's not changing our lifestyle. I'm like, she's like, but she was getting so much positive reinforcement from her family. Oh, we're so proud of you. I'm like, who are you living your life for? You or your family? So what am I going to tell people if I don't do anything? I'm like, tell them you're retired.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
tell them I picked the right man.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be retired at 30? Right? Like everybody. That's what everyone's working their asses to do. So it's funny. If you just frame things in the right way, it changes everything.
Yeah. My goal's by 40, but I'm 33. But I'll never retire. That's the thing.
Oh, no, I don't mean for, me too. I'm the same way. I'm never going to retire.
That was my goal is what I'm saying. But now I know who I am, and I know I'll be completely bored if I'm not doing something.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never retire.
Yeah. Well, so how big is your team? Like, how many people do you have, in your various companies, working on stuff?
So 2A for Life, we have 7 of us.
Right.
My real estate business, we have 2 agents in New Jersey, 2 agents here, me, my wife, my mom, and then my wife does mortgage too. So we kind of do everything. And then I had a joint venture on a title company that I partnered with a title company, so I could feed my deals through there. So we kind of cover all the bases. So I had 10 agents on my team. Now it's a little smaller. Some people went on their own. I got rid of some. And then I have a partner in the peptide company, one partner in peptide company and this company. And then it's just me and my wife for real estate.
Okay.
And then we own like a couple other things, but they don't really matter.
A couple other things, the pool, the pool, I own a
pool league, APA pool league, where we own a county and it makes like 15, 20 grand a year. It's like, it's just nothing that really.
Well, so is there particular qualities you look for when you're bringing people onto your team? Or are there particular things or like red flags, like, hey, if I see even a little glimpse of this, like, yeah, they're not going to be part of the team.
Yeah, like their moral compass, right? Like,
Right.
who are they as a person? Really, do they fit the role, right? Like EOS operating system, DISC assessment tests, right? Like, you got to really understand who you're working with and what you need.
Yep.
So, we've kind of implemented that. And, even with my partner, we took, we all take tests and we see what are our strong suits. Like, what are we good at? Me, I work through others.
Right.
It's hard to get me to sit at a desk for 5 hours
Right.
from the time I was 5,
Right.
It's just not me. But my wife's different. She's an introvert, and she's like, give me the work. I'll get it done efficiently, quickly, and then I'll have free time, right? Like, what she does in 5 hours would take me 25 hours. I'm not even kidding.
I believe you.
So, and then, yeah, so really just hiring for the right role, and not hiring because you like the person, but do they fit the role?
Yeah. Yeah. The personality hire can be a big mistake. You hire on pure personality.
Or hiring friends.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
good one.
100%. Well, so if you could go back in time, and like I know most people will say, oh, if I didn't, make all the mistakes I made, I wouldn't be who I am today. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I always say this, which is I can trace all my best qualities back to bad shit that happened. There's not one of my good qualities I can say, oh, this really good thing happened, and that's why I have this good quality. Like, there's zero of those.
Okay.
So I get that. But if you could go back in time, give your younger version of yourself some advice, maybe some things to do differently, what might that be?
Again, I mean, I feel like you said, every one of these things, because my answer obviously was I wouldn't be where I am and who I am today without them. But even if I were to say, like, when I started making a lot of money at the beginning and the ego kicked in and I'm spending and doing this and doing that, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't know how to handle it now. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like, I guess I would have invested more money, right? Like, I bought crypto in 2016 and 17.
Pretty early.
I didn't buy enough.
Right.
Like, I put a little in,
did.
and my 2,000 turned into 60,000. But why didn't I put? I was making 10,000 a week. Why didn't I put in real money?
Right.
Like, hindsight's always 20/20. So. I would have stayed in shape. I couldn't exercise for 2 years. Like, I could have kept running. I just had a fucked up arm. I could have ran.
Right.
But I guess victim mentality, I would have got rid of the victim mentality way earlier.
That's a good one.
Because it's not really a thing. That's what it would have been.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, poor me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, my weekends were spent going to mental hospitals to visit my sister with my mom, not hanging out with my friends. So poor me.
Yeah.
Right. Poor me this. My dad left, so
Yeah.
I guess that's really all I would have changed, and just been positive quicker.
Huh.
But then how would I have the wisdom to help others?
Well, I mean, maybe it's to just have shrunk the period of time with the victim lens, right? Because
I'm 33.
you're still
how
young.
much quicker?
Yeah, no, that's pretty young.
I
That's
feel
pretty
like
young.
from 21 to 25,
That's not bad.
I literally went through my whole transformation. I mean, obviously it never stops, but like, I played poker at 15 with 50-year-old men, and we have conversation. Like, I've always been an older soul.
Yeah.
So it's not a coincidence that all my drug addicts, everything happened so young.
Right.
And I say, I'm grateful for that. I wouldn't have taken that back, because I would have had to see it now.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it would have happened to me now. It was inevitable that it was going to happen. It was just, it happened when it was supposed to happen.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, so, maybe think about, so your daughter's only 4.5. So, and you're still young, super young, but imagine, say 30, 40 years from now, you're still around. What would you want your daughter to say about you?
It's more about when I'm dead. When I'm dead, I want to create a legacy for my family. I don't want to be the guy that dies. Everybody cries and goes to a funeral, and then we forget what he did, right? Like, I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in my lineage of my family. Like, I want my daughter's kids and their kids to reap the benefits of me breaking the bloodline. That's important to me. that I was honest, that I was around, that I was present, you know, that we had a great relationship, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Are you any idea, any thoughts of having more kids or?
I mean, I'm 33, one day at a time, but my wife is 44 years old. We went through a lot of complications. So,
okay.
you know, that's why when I met you and you said you have one and it's amazing, I'm like, all right, one's all right.
Well, I'm telling you.
No, I'm serious. After that conversation with you and I went home, I told my wife about you. You have one daughter and you love it. And I'm like, all right, maybe I'm all right with one daughter. I wanted a daughter and a son.
You know, it's funny. I here's my thought about it because, you know, there's part of me that wanted a son. I always wanted a son to coach in wrestling. Like, oh, I would have killed to do that, you know, so much. But the other side of that coin is maybe he would have hated it, you know, and maybe he would have resented me for it, you know. And it's like, I think that it's when the kid's the opposite gender. Like, I really do think a daughter's better for the dad and a son's better for the mom, because you can't help, even if you try to rein yourself in, you're going to live a little bit vicariously through a kid of the same gender. Like, you know, like you said, you broke your arm and, you know, you weren't able to be the athlete that you probably could have become otherwise. You'd have wanted that for your son.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I literally thought I wanted a boy. When I found out I had a girl, I was so we were having a girl, I was so happy, and I knew I'd be too hard on the boy.
Right.
Like, I knew it because that's who we are, right?
Right.
Like we're dominant alpha kind of men. So it's like we would want what we want for that kid. And I knew with my daughter, I was just going to be softer and like, whatever makes you happy.
Which is probably good for us.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I find really interesting is that probably the biggest, most consistent blind spot I see in men, especially men that are successful, is their romantic relationships. And guys like that are otherwise really smart, really, you know, good, you know, critical thinkers. When it comes to the person they sleep with, their brain goes out the fucking window. And I'm just curious what your experience is with that. Sounds like you made a terrific choice. You've got a partner in life, which is wonderful. But maybe I'm just curious, like your 2 cents about my observation about that.
Yeah, I see that too. Even with a lot of the people that I watch online, watch their YouTubes, their podcasts. There's a lot of people that I look up to where I don't look up to them in their relationship department, right? And there's others that have great relationship department, but I don't look up to them in their physical being, right? So, you know, I think everybody's always lacking somewhere, right? Somebody's stronger in one area, the 4 B's, the body, the business, the being, and the bonds, right? That's how I break down everything.
I've heard that before. Okay, I like that.
So that's one of Raul's things in the EDGE program, right? Okay. So like, did you tell the people you love them today? Did you show love today, right? Mm-hmm. That's something I check off in an app every single day. Oh. It's called the EDGE 100 app, and it's $10 a month, and it's literally how I live my life. I'll show you after the podcast. But so those are the 4 things, right? So there's no such thing as balancing those 4 things. You got to be all in when you're actually doing those 4 things. So if you're at the gym, you're all in at the gym, right? If you're at home with your family, you're all in with them. It's not equal amount of time. It's just being present and being all in each category. So I think a lot of people lack the bonds, right? Where for me, that's one of the most important things, right? A date night. Spending time with my wife and daughter every day. And I don't care if I don't have $1 billion because of it. Right. To me, that's more important, you know, but to a lot of people, they put finances in front of what's actually important. Because when we die, we're all going to the same place. And don't get it twisted. I love money. I want to be worth $1 billion. That's my goal. I want to be, right? I don't want the M, I want the B. But not at the cost of my happiness. And true love is happiness. So if you're not with your family, like eventually you're going to be miserable again.
Yeah. You know, another question I'm curious to, just because I know some of the circles, people that you're in the room with, I've had two reasonably close friends of mine. One had a mid 8-figure exit. One had a low 9-figure exit here in the last couple of years. And in both cases, like it went off the rails for both of them. And how do you see money as sort of a magnifying glass to both good and bad?
Yeah. So ego. People get that exit. They think they're the shit, and then they have no purpose anymore. Right. So if you get rid of that company,
right,
and you don't have a clear vision of what's in your future and what your purpose is now,
Right.
and you lose purpose, then what?
Yeah.
Then they go off the rails. When you say off the rails, what do you mean?
I mean, like super depressed. Like, I think it was just a complete loss of purpose. You drive to this thing for decades and then you get there. And I think I mentioned this on a couple other podcasts, the stat of like the percentage of gold medal winners in the Olympics that can consider suicide, like within 6 months of winning their gold medal, is very high. Because it's like, well, shit, I've been in the swimming pool since I was 3 and that's it. Like I'm 21, or 28, whatever, now I'm done. Right. And now it's one of the reasons I felt like Kobe Bryant dying in that helicopter accident was such a tragedy other than the obvious tragedy of him dying, was he was one of those guys that was going to make it. Like he was going to be an amazing businessman. You could just see it. And the last interview he did with Patrick Bet-David, I think was the last interview he did before he was killed. And you could just tell that he was just going to crush it just like he did on the basketball court. He was just going to always find a way to win. And that was just so tragic to me.
Yeah, 100% the loss of purpose.
Yeah. So as you think about maybe the next 10, 15 years of your life, how much do you think about like what your specific goals are versus the systems and processes you're going to use sort of on that journey? Like where do you focus your attention? Are you super goal specific, like I got to do this by this age, or is it more like, hey, here's what I'm going to do every day and I'm going to get where I get?
And I'm more of a visionary, so I see the goal, and then I need the other people to help me put the processes together, right? So like, it's more like I know I want to exit a company. I want that big exit. I have the game plan of what I want to do with that money when I have it, right? But I struggle with the actionable steps to get there.
Okay.
So that's where the team's going to kind of come into play with that, because I have a different idea every day, right? I feel like we all kind of get distracted at times, but I guess it's a combination of both. I know what it is I'm going to do, and now, like with this company, I know I just bought it. I want to 10x it in 1 to 2 years, and then exit it, and then do it again. Like I guess getting clearer on those actionable tasks to get to the finish line, something I could work on.
So when you do have that next big exit, what are the 1 or 2 things you want to do other than, maybe do something nice for you or your wife or your kid? But is there any sort of external thing you want to do when you've got some kind of a financial windfall that you get excited about?
You mean like a donation?
It could be, start a school for the blind. I don't know. I'm just making shit up, but retire your mom. And I'm just,
Well, that is one of them, right?
Okay.
My mom has done so much for me.
Right.
My dad inherited enough money where he makes money, where he could just live his simple life forever at the rate he does it.
Right.
But my mom has given everything and doesn't know how to save a dollar. So, my goal is to be able to retire her for sure. I was trying to think, I forgot about the little ones I want to do, right? Because to me, that's small, right?
Yeah.
That's going to happen in a year or two, like in my mind, right?
Got it.
1 or 2 of these companies is going to be enough for her not to have to work. But I'm going to go home today and I'm going to decide exactly what the bigger goal of how I'm going to change the world is based on this conversation. You think I'm kidding?
I don't think you're kidding at all.
But no, I didn't really think about that.
Right.
It's always for my loved ones. So my daughter's set up so my mom can retire, right? All those things are inevitable. Buy the new cars for the people. I like the little things.
Right.
But what's really that big thing?
Well, so where can people find you? Where can people, your new business, or by all means, plug away.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Deutscher is my Instagram. It is my first and last name. It is my Facebook. You can go there, hit me up. Really, my goal is to grow my personal brand and let the world know who I am so I can help others that are suffering from anything I've been through, right? From drug addiction, overweight, suicidal, depressed, anxious, all that kind of stuff. That's really my purpose. Yeah. I don't know how the fuck to monetize it, but I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and it seems to be working pretty good.
Jesse, thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.